The kingdom of Babylon, a vast empire stretching across lands and peoples, was a place of immense beauty and unmatched power. At its center stood King Nebuchadnezzar, a ruler known for his military conquests and grand ambitions. His ego matched the splendor of Babylon's hanging gardens and towering ziggurats. But for all his achievements, one desire consumed him: to be worshipped as a god. Driven by this ambition, Nebuchadnezzar commissioned a golden statue, an immense image of himself standing 90 feet tall and gleaming brighter than the sun. Crafted by the finest artisans and forged with precious metals gathered from his conquests, the statue symbolized his absolute authority over the world. One morning, as the sun rose over Babylon, heralds were sent to every province of the kingdom, summoning governors, satraps, magistrates, and leaders to the plain of Dura. There, before the colossal idol, a decree was proclaimed. When you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipes, and all kinds of music, you must bow down and worship the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. The announcement sent shockwaves through the people. This was no mere request, it was an ultimatum. The thought of defying the king, whose punishments were swift and brutal, struck terror into their hearts. Among the diverse peoples of Babylon lived 3 men who had once been exiles from their homeland, Israel. Known by their Babylonian names, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were young, wise, and devout followers of the one true God. Their faith in Yahweh had guided them through trials since their youth, including their capture during the Babylonian conquest. Despite being far from home, their unwavering faith had not gone unnoticed. They served in King Nebuchadnezzar's court as officials, admired for their wisdom, loyalty, and integrity. But their loyalty had limits. No decree, not even one from the king, could make them bow to an idol. When the music played across the plain of Dura, thousands dropped to their knees, bowing low before the golden statue. Dust clouds rose as heads touched the ground. Yet in the midst of the sea of worshippers, 3 figures stood tall, unmoving, like trees rooted firmly against a storm. Whispers and gasps rippled through the crowd. Some looked up, confused by the defiance. Others turned their faces away, fearful of being associated with the bold act. Among the onlookers were jealous officials, rivals of the 3 men, who seized the opportunity to accuse them before the king. One advisor sneered, "They neither serve your gods nor worship the image you have set up." Nebuchadnezzar's pride was wounded. How dare anyone defy his command, especially men whom he had elevated to positions of power? With a wave of his hand, he ordered, "Bring them to me at once." In the grand hall of the palace, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were brought before the king. The air was tense, and the eyes of courtiers and guards bore into them. Nebuchadnezzar, his face dark with anger, leaned forward on his throne. "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego," he began, his voice sharp and cold, "that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image I have set up? I will give you one more chance. When the music plays, if you bow down and worship, all will be well. But if you refuse, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. And what God can deliver you from my hand?" The room fell silent. The threat hung in the air like a blade. All eyes turned to the three men, expecting them to falter, to bargain for their lives. But their faces remained calm, their voices steady. "O King," Shadrach said, stepping forward, "we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know that we will not serve your gods or worship the image you have set up." The hall erupted in murmurs. Nebuchadnezzar's face turned crimson with rage. He roared, "Heat the furnace 7 times hotter than usual." The furnace, already blazing, roared with new fury as the king's orders were carried out. The heat was so intense that the soldiers tasked with binding the men could barely approach it. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were tied tightly with ropes and led toward the fire. The soldiers, grim-faced and sweating under the furnace's heat, hesitated for a moment before shoving the men into the flames. As they did, a sudden wave of fire burst from the furnace, consuming the soldiers instantly. Their screams echoed for a brief moment before they fell silent. But inside the furnace, something miraculous happened. Nebuchadnezzar, watching from a safe distance, leaned forward in disbelief. He squinted, his eyes widening with shock. "Weren't there 3 men we tied up and threw into the fire?" he asked his advisors. "Yes, Your Majesty," they replied, their voices trembling. The king pointed at the furnace, his hand shaking. "Look! I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed. And the 4th looks like a son of the gods." The advisors exchanged stunned glances. What they saw defied explanation. The flames, which should have consumed the men in seconds, danced harmlessly around them. The 4th figure, radiant and otherworldly, walked alongside them, his presence filling the furnace with a divine light. Nebuchadnezzar, unable to contain his awe, approached the furnace as closely as he could. His voice, filled with a mixture of fear and reverence, boomed, "Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out. Come here." As the 3 men stepped out of the furnace, the crowd gasped. Not a single hair on their heads was singed, and their clothes were untouched by the flames. There was not even the faintest smell of smoke on them. The king's advisors, who moments ago had plotted against the men, now stood speechless, their faces pale. Nebuchadnezzar himself was trembling, his pride melted away by what he had witnessed. "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego," the king declared, his voice echoing through the plain. "He has sent his angel to rescue his servants. They trusted in him and defied my command, willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own." The crowd erupted in cheers, the awe of the miracle spreading like wildfire. Nebuchadnezzar issued a new decree: "Let no one in my kingdom say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, for no other god can save in this way." From that day forward, the story of the 3 men who walked unharmed through the flames was told across the kingdom and beyond. It became a testament to the power of faith, the courage to stand firm, and the God who delivers his people in their darkest hour. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego returned to their lives, their faith stronger than ever. They knew the fire had not only tested their trust in God, but had also revealed His glory to an entire kingdom. They continued to serve as witnesses, encouraging others to remain steadfast in their beliefs, no matter the cost. As for Nebuchadnezzar, his encounter with the miraculous left a lasting impression. Though his pride would resurface in time, this moment humbled him, planting a seed of reverence for the Most High God. The story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego reminds us that even in our darkest moments, we are not alone. Faith does not always mean escaping the fire, it means trusting that God will walk with us through it. In the end, the flames that were meant to destroy them only served to refine their testimony. Please subscribe to the channel and share the lessons you have learned from this story.